This is a junkyard dog from Kershaw. Interesting knife. It was one of the first recent production blades in 13C26, which is very similar to AEBL steel that has received quite a bit of attention in the custom knife industry, and has sparked some development of steels like 14C28N and very high-end versions like Nitrobe 77, which are being used by some very decent custom knife makers. Now, I want to use this to talk about, again, two examples of customer service or customer interaction on the extreme ends of the scale. When this knife first came out, a number of people were excited to see it because, again, it was one of the first sort of recent reintroductions of sort of a razor blade steel in production knives. So people were sort of excited for a number of reasons to get a steel that was similar to your traditional carbon steels but stainless. So very easy to sharpen, takes a high polish very well, and very good edge holding at high sharpness. Unfortunately, it had none of those properties. It was gummy, difficult to sharpen, didn't take a high sharpness very well, didn't stay sharp very long at all. And as it turns out, the hardness on this was spec'd as low as 55 Rockwell, which is a very odd point to harden this type of steel, because it's actually designed for 60 plus hardness. That's the exact reason why it has the carbon chromium balance to allow full hardness martensite, still having lathe type structure, avoiding plate martensite. So a number of people sort of posted about that, and the interaction from the rep at that time was less than ideal. He would respond to arguments made from the point of view of metallurgy, of practical use, with just insults and degradation of people who made such claims and statements. No evidence, no support, just personal attacks. Fast forward, same moderator, many years later, continues to openly attack, personally degrade people and blade forms. His name is Thomas Welk. He usually goes by Thomas W. or some reference to Kai Cutlery. I'll put up some links to some videos, threads that you can have a look at. But that, as I said, is on the extreme far end of the scale. Unless you have a glowing, sort of overly positive commentary, the backlash is very strong, and it quickly is reduced to just fallacy and insults. No argument, no facts, no presentation of any kind of evidence, just personal insults. And it's the kind of thing that if it happened so-called in real life, not on the internet, not only would people not stand for it, but actions would be taken. If you were in a store and me and you were having a conversation and I asked you about a product and you said, man, I'd never buy that fridge. I had that fridge a couple years ago, it's an absolute piece of junk. I had problems with it, I could never get it fixed. I said, wow, guess I won't buy that one then. Sort of walk away. And the salesperson in the store came over and personally started attacking you, telling you to get out of the store, you have no business commenting on any of their products. What would you actually do? That's what actually happens on the internet, on the forums, and that's what Thomas does an awful lot. And it's an interesting thing to see. People will put up with it over the internet, and they will put up with it happening to other people. But again, in real life, people who would do that, there would be immediate consequences. No one would tolerate that sort of behavior in real life. You would obviously report the guy, you'd ask to see a manager right away, and there'd be consequences to it. On the other end of the spectrum, you have people like Kyley who made this. This is Victorious. It's an ultra lightweight folder, very slim, doesn't have a lock, has sort of a safety catch. This is a knife from Kyle. He's working on some secondary retention systems which are quite interesting. This is a pin lock. He also has a wraparound cord lock that he uses. I disengaged on this because I don't normally use secondary retention systems, but this is an example of another one of his knives. I'm going to be talking about this shortly. really good people, really nice to talk to, and they're the type of knife makers that you don't need to be one of those shill fans who overly glowingly praises every aspect of their work. You can actually have a conversation with them and talk about things, about how you feel the product is a bit lacking from your perspective, things that you would like to see, just general comments on their work. The other real reason, though, that I wanted to make this video, they're a nice knife by Kyley Harris, is that very recently it had come to my attention, Murrary Carter, knife maker, wanted to talk to me about some comments that I had made where I had disagreed with some of the things he had said about white steel versus blue steel, about sharpening stones, about diamonds, many other things. Now, my comments weren't anyway at all positive, were strongly in disagreement, strongly critical, but his perspectives were also rather strong, some of the things that he said. Now, that kind of conversation can often go two ways. Number one, the individual can try to threaten or actively censor what you say, and good luck, that's not really going to work if you want to try to take that approach with me. But I had no idea what to expect. So instead I had a conversation with Murrary Carter, and it was the exact same kind of conversation I'd have with any one of my close friends if we ran into each other and we were talking about a few things. There was no reflection on Murray's end of any kind of hostility. All he did is essentially would say was, so you have some kind of disagreement about what I've said about white steel and blue steel? And I was like, yes. So then he would explain in detail the sort of sound bite that I was sort of working from, that 15-second YouTube clip or that 3-line sentence that was on his website or cross-posted to some forum. Mike Gavick. And in case you're ever wondering, in many of these videos where you're watching me working with the flippers, I adjust the tension in the flippers so they don't open very easily, and that's because of legal issues here. There is some concern, and I don't think it's 100% settled, whether or not flippers are actually quasi-legal because of the way that they open. But anyway, so I tighten them to extreme length, so there's never any question about that. So in any case, so I was talking to Murray, and he explained in detail what his opinion was on white steel and blue steel and flattening stones and using diamond abrasives. And after the end of that conversation, I don't want to paraphrase anything that he said. If you want to know more about Carter's perspective, then send him an email, make a comment, give him a call, find out what's going on. All I will say is that I don't have any disagreement with his commentary on those issues. The reason why I had a disagreement, because I was working from, again, a small soundbite, a quote, and that's often taken the most extreme stance that someone says is what's quoted. So the issue I was having was because I was looking at that sort of extreme stance or extreme comment and extrapolating that to be that's his entire perspective, that's his entire viewpoint. And from that point of view, I would still disagree with it. But it isn't his entire viewpoint, it isn't his entire argument, it isn't his entire perspective. That's again an extreme, condensed sort of microcosm view of his viewpoint on a particular topic, and it's kind of misleading and not, in fact, overly sensible to do what I did and sort of mass extrapolate that. So wanted to say that in regards to comments I've made about Murray Carter, because again I posted disagreements with what he said before, and the issue wasn't with what Murray said but how I was interpreting it. So the mistake was on my part, because again I was looking at a small quote and extrapolating that as if that was his entire perspective, and it isn't. But my point in saying this isn't that Murray Carter is right, because these are matters of debate, these are matters of discussion. My point was that even though I had been very critical of what Murray had said, even though most of my comments were negative, the interaction that we had was overly positive. And he didn't expect or want any kind of this glowing sort of praise during the interaction. All he wanted to know was to have a discussion, to learn, to sort of exchange. So he was basically asking me, okay, where are your points of disagreement? Now let's have a discussion and see if we can come to some kind of understanding. that's how you would expect people to behave. That's how you would want people to behave in general. And one of the things that surprises me still to this day is that people support makers and manufacturers who don't act like that and then complain about them, which is kind of interesting from my perspective. So, as I've said before, I also had a very positive interaction with Clay from the Wicked Edge, which led to me getting a Wicked Edge system here. And this is the portable model, professional version of the portable model, and I'll be doing some work with this, and it'll also be going on a pass around. If there's any things that you're interested in, any details you want to see explored, any comparisons, by all means make a post, let me know what you're looking at, and I'll see if I can get it done.